I have an 1100 day movement streak, and this video is going to be all about my 3 biggest tips for developing consistency with moving your body. So, I'm a physician mom, if you didn't already know that. I am a family physician. I have also 5 kids that are between the ages of currently soon to be 1.5 years old, and then up to 8.5 years old. So they are squished together in a small time frame. And so I'm gonna get right into the tips because, if you're a physician mom watching this, I get it. We're busy, you wear a lot of hats, there's a lot of roles, and maybe moving your body is something that's been on your to-do list for years, and you've been trying to figure out how to fit it in, how to make it doable, how to do all the things. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Subscribe so you never miss a video. So tip number 1 is to redefine exercise. What do I mean by that? So before I was ever pregnant, I was a resident, and then I was attending for a little while when I was pregnant. But prior to pregnancy, I had a definition of exercise that was based on being a competitive athlete essentially my entire life. I was a swimmer, I swam in college, and even after college, navigating exercise as an adult on my own, I still had this definition, which for myself was I was wearing a sports bra, I was super sweaty, it was at a minimum 30 minutes, but that was like the absolute low end. It was usually longer than that. There were often weights involved. There were all these different components that in my brain, I was required to have to make it count as exercise. When I became a mom, as a brand new attending, I realized that that definition was no longer going to work anymore. But for months, I battled myself about it, and I would not let other things count as exercise. So as an example, I would take my brand new daughter out for a walk with our dogs and walk for 30, 45 minutes around our neighborhood. And I didn't count that as exercise, as moving my body, as something that was healthy for me. That was just a chore that I was doing. And similarly, I would find pockets of time here and there where I could meet that prior definition that I had, but I was really beating myself up because I was able to do that maybe once a week, sometimes only a couple times a month. And I was really frustrated because I wanted to feel better in my body. I wanted to feel more like myself. Movement is something that I wanted to role model for her and for my future kids. And I just wanted to feel good mentally and physically. And what I was finding is the ability for me to find those pockets in my schedule were just much fewer and farther between because of how strict my definition was. And there was this moment where one day, it was kind of 2 moments that I'll describe. So the first one was climbing up the stairs, carrying her, and she was, maybe around 1 at this time. And I got to the top of the stairs carrying her, and I literally had to put her down and take a breath, take a minute to catch my breath because I was short of breath from climbing the stairs. And that moment was one of those moments this is not okay. I'm young, I'm a doctor, I'm talking to my patients all day, every day about lifestyle stuff because I'm family medicine. I need to be working on this. So that was one sort of pivotal moment for me. The other one was I used to always tell my patients that would come in, we'd talk about movement, exercise, all of that. And a lot of times the biggest obstacle was, well, I can't find the time. And so I would always ask them in return, could you find 1 minute a day to move? And around the time of this climbing the stairs event, I was in a room with a patient saying this literal sentence. And there was this moment in my head where it was wait a minute, you're not taking your own advice. I was not finding the 1 minute a day that I could move. I was deciding I don't have 45 minutes a day to move, so I'm just gonna not move at all, except for maybe a few times a month. And so those things combined really made me sit down to shift my perspective. And that's when I decided I'm going to change how I define movement. And so I started to let dog walking count. I said, maybe there's a day where it's a really hard day at the office and my daughter's crabby, or, whatever the circumstances are. Maybe that's a day that I do a stretch and I let that count as moving my body. Days where I'm physically sick and need to rest, meditation. So I let meditation, which I like to think of as exercise for my brain, on a day where physically it actually would be harmful to move my body in an intentional way like that. I know that my body needs rest. I let a meditation count. And so, and also sort of stripping away any time requirement, any clothing requirement, any requirement at all, right? Like if you look up the definition of exercise, I think it says something along the lines of like intentional physical activity that will improve your health and well-being. I mean, I haven't actually looked it up in a dictionary, but I know that it's not defined by a set, like you don't have to meet certain criteria for it to count. And certainly you can define that for you, especially as a physician mom that wears all these different hats, that is taking care of everyone all the time. You can bump yourself up to the top of the to-do list and let something small and doable and gentle still count. You don't have to be wearing a sports bra. You could be in your pajamas. All of that still counts. So if you get anything from this video, I would say take even just 5 minutes to really think about what can exercise be for you? How can you define that? How can you maybe adjust or reframe a prior definition? And that's not to mean that this new definition is forever, right? This is something that your definition of exercise, of movement, can evolve over time. Maybe you're like me, you're in a phase of life where you have a lot of little kids and there's a lot to do for them and you have a lot of things going on. Or maybe you're in a phase of life where your kids are older or more dependent, or maybe you're in empty nester phase. Whatever phase of life you are, you can adjust the definition to what works for you in that moment. So tip number 1 for movement consistency is redefine exercise for you and your current phase of life. Number 2 is to have a backup workout. So especially as a physician, especially as a mom, and especially as a physician mom, we tend to, now I don't want to use a blanket statement, but I know for myself, for many of my clients, for many of my colleagues, we tend to be type A, where we like to follow the rules. We like to, like if we set a plan, we're going to follow through. We tend to be perfectionists. These are traits that allow us to succeed through things like applying to medical school, graduating medical school, getting into a residency, graduating residency. But sometimes these traits, in the way of this, in terms of movement and exercise, can be a barrier. So my personal example is there were times with my first child where I would set a plan, like, okay, this is when I'm going to work out, this is what I'm going to do, here's how it's going to go. And then something would go wrong. I would, like, say I had planned to work out in the morning and I couldn't get up because she woke up overnight, or I was on call and I took home call, but I was on call and got multiple phone calls in the time frame when I was supposed to exercise, or my daughter got sick, or my husband got sick, or whatever it was. So that was a very easy situation where I would throw in the towel. I would say, okay, the workout's out the window, can't do it today, never mind. And what I learned through having multiple kids and having a husband that's a surgeon and being a physician myself, if I did that every single time something life-wise popped up, I literally would never exercise at all, because almost every single day there's something, whether it's small or big. And that's my situation. I feel like everybody has that, no matter what your career is, no matter what your family life is, right? Everybody has their unique circumstances. This is all to say, tip number 2 is to have a backup plan. So just plan, take a few minutes and have a plan. My B workout is this, my C workout is this. So if A doesn't work out, then you go to B, then you go to C. So for me, my sort of the C backup workout is something that you can do no matter what. And so a lot of times for me, that's literally finding 1 minute. Many times it's 5, occasionally it's only 1, but it's literally just taking that 1 to 5 minutes and doing something. A stretch, marching in place, whatever your favorite activity is that you would get excited about doing. For me, it's usually stretching. And I know in my mind the stretches that I would want to do during those minutes, and let that be like, okay, if everything else is falling apart, this is what I'm going to do, because I know I can figure it out even on the absolute worst day when I'm so exhausted, whatever it is. And then you can have that, the plan for a middle of the road where maybe I can't do the, full throttle what I was planning to do, but here's sort of a modified version where maybe it's less time, maybe it doesn't require a change of clothes, however you want to think about that. But I think thinking about that ahead of time is what can be really helpful with consistency, because then inevitably when life shows up in whatever form as that physician mom, instead of throwing in the towel and saying, well, never mind, we'll start again tomorrow, you can pivot, you can adjust, and you can go to that backup workout. So to review, tip 1, redefine exercise. Tip 2, have backup workouts planned in advance. Tip number 3 is to celebrate your win of showing up. Okay, so Dr. Sarah, what does that mean? So what do I mean by that? So again, kind of using myself as the story, I spent years not counting certain workouts, and I would celebrate things like, oh, I did this X mile run at this pace. Like that's what I was shooting for. And then I would beat myself up on another day because I didn't hit the pace that I wanted to hit. So this tip is about celebrating every day showing up. So it's not what you did, it's not how you did it, it's not what you were wearing, it's not maybe how your clothes fit or how many pounds you lost. It's literally celebrating the fact that you showed up and did it. And that is really, really powerful. It sounds so simple, but until you try it, you will not realize how powerful it is. So taking the time to either in a notebook, if you're a pen and paper person like I am, or in your phone, like in a note, a reminder, whatever, however you will best be able to keep track of it. But literally, it's not complicated. It's like a few seconds, like I showed up. You could do check marks, but it's just recognizing that you showed up and celebrating that as a win, that you showed up for yourself, that you carved out whatever time you carved out to move your body in an intentional way. And like I said, back to tip 1, for me, on a day where maybe physical movement like walking or lifting or stretching doesn't fit in with what my body wants because I'm sick or whatever, then I will count meditation, because that's still taking that time for me to show up. And so the 3 tips that I went over in terms of, these are my biggest 3 for helping with movement consistency, are redefining what exercise is for you in your phase of life. Number 2 is oh my word, I'm walking and looking out the window. I totally lost my train of thought. So number 2 is, so number 1 is redefining exercise. Number 2 is having those backup workouts. And then number 3 is celebrate the win of showing up. And number 3 is so important because on a day where you just don't want to do it, you're like, why am I doing this? It's not helpful. You go back and you look and you see like, okay, I showed up, and you want to keep showing up. It can also be helpful to think about things that you've noticed. I feel better physically. I have more energy. I can climb up those stairs without getting short of breath. Maybe my mental health is feeling better. I have more patience with my kids. I'm yelling less. I am more excited about showing up to life in different arenas. So if you feel so inspired to do that, you can absolutely, I showed up and like keep track of some of those other things happening. But I think the most important thing, like I said, is really celebrating that you showed up for yourself and that you're taking care of yourself. And so, if you are that physician mom where it feels like movement has been on your to-do list for a really long time, and it feels like a box you're just trying to check, maybe you've lost the joy in movement, maybe you have lost yourself after having kids or after becoming a mom. Sometimes it can feel like you're on this journey alone and like maybe you forgot who you were before you had those babies. Movement is a wonderful way to reconnect with yourself, to find yourself again, to feel stronger, more confident, energized, vibrant. There are so many things, so many benefits, both mental and physical. And if that's what you're looking for, I am definitely the movement coach for you. So I coach physician moms to create passion for movement as a way to feel stronger, more confident, more energized, more vibrant, and inspire their families to do the same. And if after watching this, you're thinking, wow, I would love to be able to do that consistently. I would love to have ideas for what I should be doing and how to do it and have a customized plan and authentic, non-judgmental support. Definitely sign up for my free 30-minute movement consult where we can talk all about what that looks like, what that transformation can be, and how to get you there. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely subscribe for more. If you are looking for those doable, gentle, non-judgmental, non-intimidating videos, that is what this channel is all about, especially for physician moms. Subscribe, ring the bell, share with another mom who needs this. And thank you so much for being here, cheering for you always. Thank you for moving with me. Bye, everyone.